Give me 1 second. I'm gonna move something.
Welcome to Turn the Dial podcast, hosted by Scott and Renee Comey. Scott and Renee are real estate industry experts, having reached the top 1% in the nation as both agents and brokerage owners. Their insights, ideas, and suggestions will help guide you to a place where achieving your life aspirations is fully possible.
Being authentic in your business. That's what we're going to be talking about today with a very special guest, Lori Edwards. Now, to tell you a little bit about Lori, she's a native North Carolinian. She was born, raised, and educated there. She serves the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina as a realtor and broker in charge of RE/MAX United's Raleigh office. Lori began her real estate career about a decade ago and drew upon her background in elementary education and nonprofit fund development. Her passion lies in empowering others to discover their true potential, and she firmly believes in the power of personal growth, emphasizing the concept of becoming 1% better each day. Lori's favorite role is mom to two incredible teenage daughters, and when she's not focused on real estate, she loves downhill skiing, volunteering in the local community, reading, and relaxing on North Carolina's beautiful beaches in the warmer months. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are so grateful to have you. And by the way, when I first read your bio too, I'm like, she has two teenage daughters. What the heck? I had no idea.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're gonna be like, "Wow, you look great."
Yeah.
One of them actually will not be a teenager after August, so she will be a 20-year-old. So that is yeah. So it's fun. Don't let anyone tell you teenage girls are not awesome. They're really fun.
Very cool. Well, we wanted to ask you because, I see you, of course, on video a lot and specifically on TikTok. I follow you and I wanted to ask you, how do you define authenticity? Because you're definitely authentic in your videos, and specifically define it in the real estate industry. How do you define that? And why do you believe it's important for agents to embody this trait?
So authenticity is, being real, being genuine. And I think I think in my younger years, I thought I was being real and being genuine. But as I got older, I realized that maybe I was masking some of those, some different traits that I didn't like about myself. But in terms of real estate, authenticity is extremely important in building trust. I mean, ultimately, we are asking folks to trust us with likely the biggest purchase they ever make or biggest sale they ever make. And authenticity and trust go hand in hand. And I, as a person who can really trust my gut, I should say, I can sniff out a lack of authenticity and I really bristle at it and I lose trust in that person if I have some concerns about that. So trust is essential in our industry and that goes right along with authenticity. And I think it can be hard to find your authentic self. I think it comes with age, it comes with experience. So, if there are younger agent listeners out there, like it's hard. It's a hard journey to find who you really are. And it's a constant journey, but I talk fast. You can hear me. I talk. Sorry, my eyes water 100% of the time. I talk really fast, and that's who I am. I can slow down. I try to slow down a lot, but it does not come natural to me. So, if that doesn't work for someone, a client, a potential client, that might not be a good fit because they don't trust. Not everyone trusts people who talk fast. So, I have a Southern accent. Not everyone loves that Southern accent. It's very strong. It's pronounced. So I just think to have successful transactions, we have to bring our authentic self to the transaction so that our client can trust us. And you do have more successful transactions with that authenticity.
When you're trying to be someone else, right? You have to remember who you were trying to be even. And at some point you won't.
That is so true.
And so it makes life so much easier when you're authentic.
Yep.
Yeah, you are kind of spinning your wheels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Love it.
Can you share a personal experience with our audience where authenticity played a significant role in a successful transaction or client relationship?
Oh, okay. So for for me, authenticity includes transparency.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
feel like I have to be very clear about myself, where my boundaries are, how I run my business, what I expect of my clients, and what I can and cannot give them, essentially. So that transparency is part of me being authentically me. And this business can own you 24/7.
Mhm.
And I have to set those lines, and it builds healthy relationships with those
Right.
clients. Again, building that trust. And I share up front that I have school age children, that I have evenings that need to be dedicated to other people, and that I'm there for them, but I may not always be there for them on their timeline, but I
Right.
will be there quickly when necessary. So that transparency goes with authenticity. But I'll tell you a story I recently had. Literally, it closed last week, and I love these clients. They're first time homeowners in the United States,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, very cool. They had a job change that changed their tax status, and that changed their ability to get a loan.
Huh.
And it was very tricky. And, like I said, I talk fast, I move fast, I think too fast. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. I think so fast. And so not always a good thing. But the ability to think fast when that client called me and said, Lori, we have a huge problem. That was a major asset for them, because I was able to immediately identify where I could solve those problems, who I could go to begin to solve the problems. And if you can believe it, that deal stayed on a 30-day timeline and closed on time. But it was the constant fast thinking of the minute I got information, I was able to turn around and do something with it, help that client take the next step, and understand what was going on. So that fast thinking really benefited that authenticity of me, of being a fast mover, was beneficial to them in that transaction.
Sure. Have you ever had a transaction or a client relationship where by being authentic, like you said, hey, I set my boundaries on my weekends, on my evenings, I have other people, I will be there for you, but there's multiple obligations in
Right.
my life. Have you ever had a person where maybe that made it realize they weren't your client or you weren't their agent?
Mm.
Oh yeah. Not so much when I got to the boundary stage. I actually think my clients, and I get great people. I work by mostly referral. So people
Right.
know, like, and trust me already, and they send me people that will mesh with my personality well. So I tend to have less of those because I'm already working in a referral business. So, but I did have an interview. It was a referred client a couple years ago, and had a great phone interview with them. But the husband called me back a couple days later, and he is from a region of the country that also talks fast, so he really appreciated that.
Mhm.
But his wife did not, and I was just too much for her. And while I was disappointed in losing that, transaction, I also know that transaction would have been tug of war the
Mhm.
entire time, because that buyer couldn't connect with the way I did things. So my boundaries haven't necessarily put people off, but sometimes my personality does, and that's okay. I'm not for everybody, and
Right.
and that took a lot of years in the business to realize. I had some bad transactions that made me realize, like, I'm not the realtor for everybody, and that's okay.
Well,
Well,
that's oh, sorry. Go ahead, Renee.
I appreciate you sharing that, right? Because so many times you talk to someone and they're just really trying so hard and having such a bad experience because they aren't either getting to be their authentic self or uh, they are being their authentic self and it's just causing turmoil with the client who doesn't appreciate who they are, right? And it just, you
Mhm.
go, gosh, you could have spent that emotional energy and helped three other people while you fought through and dredged through this one. So it's a maturity thing to
Right.
realize that.
Yeah, the
That's
personality
good.
thing is huge, and I tell agents all the time when they say, "Oh, I missed out on a deal," or they went with another agent, or doesn't everybody know an agent? And the
Mhm.
thing is maybe maybe that's true, but usually they say people will hire you if they know, like, and trust you, right? And the like part is a lot of
Mhm.
it is your personality. And it goes back to when Renee and I became a team as a husband and wife team.
Right.
She's female, I'm male. I'm a little bit older than her. I was in the military, she wasn't. So we have different things, and we would go on appointments, and the person on the other end of the trend or the conversation would tend to focus on one of us versus the other, and we learned to just let that person lead. because that personality was the one they were connecting with.
Yeah. Don't take a insult or offense. Just
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so everybody's personality is good for them, and they've got their people. So no matter who you are, I think your point, Lori, is that you can be you, and there's going to be enough people in this world that love who you are and your authentic you. And so you don't need to try to fake being somebody that you're not, because you got enough people that will like you. Yeah, love it.
That is so true. Yeah, there's enough business for every personality type.
Absolutely. Well, what strategies, and you may have kind of touched on some of this a little bit already, but what strategies do you employ to build trust and rapport with your clients, and how does authenticity factor into those efforts?
So I was a public school teacher. I think you mentioned that before, in my original like college career after post college. So I mean, any teacher will tell you there's just this teacher heart. I was in fact explaining to a friend of mine who's still a teacher this weekend about, I just really enjoy this part of the process and da 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 da. And she said, "Oh, you got that teacher's heart always. Like you never." So for me, and what teachers have to do is communicate clearly and regularly. And so clear and regular communication. Proactive communication is important to me. It's almost a game I play with myself to tell my client before they can ask me the question. So that way I'm ahead of the game. They see that, oh, she has my best interest at heart, and she's always thinking down the road for me. So I don't constantly have to like come back and ask her what she's missed because she didn't miss it. And that can be hard with different clients, but just being very proactive in my communication. The minute I find out something they need to know, I try to get that information to them, be it positive, negative. And that can be hard when it's not positive, when it's a negative thing I need to share with them. It can be hard not to want to sit on it and think about it. And I just have to get that information to them. I think the best phrase I've ever heard in this industry is "I provide, you decide." And once I really embraced that, I could communicate more clearly because I'm just providing that client the information they need to make a decision. It is not mine to do to make that decision for them.
Yeah.
Right.
You can provide some other information, right? Like, hey, here's other things.
Exactly.
Ultimately, their decision. I think a lot of people really struggle with that. They'll sit with bad news for, hours, days, not be able to sleep over it.
Right.
They're holding that to them. It might not be that bad of news to their client. Their client might go, I was looking for a reason to not close on this one. My gut was telling me no, and that confirmed it, right? Or
right.
something.
Right. Very true.
So you were already kind of talking about your teacher heart and being proactive. So that's already one, habit you've adopted to stay true to yourself. Are there other practices or habits that you've adopted to stay true to yourself, true to your brand, who Lori Edwards is, while navigating the demands of real estate?
Yeah. And I think, I love that you use habits and practices because in this industry, it's very easy to set up goals. And so several years ago at our firm, we read Atomic Habits as a book club book. And that was the first book that I ever read that said, hey, goals are great. Habits are what get you there. And so I was like, oh, I have never been a goal oriented person. I could say I'm going to sell X houses every year, and I don't even care about that number. Like that does not work for me. But forming daily practices, daily habits, weekly habits is extremely important to me. In my business, I have what's called a habit tracker. I kind of stole it from a bunch of different sources. It's just on a clipboard. It stays on a clipboard. It's my task list. It's my client active, warm, and hot, and all the things. It's a focus tool, is all it is. Is it when I have an extra second, look at the clipboard. When that conversation is finished, look at the clipboard. And so that's a habit and practice. But more importantly, in terms of staying true to myself, as I had breast cancer in my late 30s, I was done with it by the time I turned 40. And that forced me to really take stock of my world, take stock of what mattered to me, the good, the bad, and the real ugly. And so in doing that personal growth work, I was able to lean into who I really was and kind of accept who I really was so I could be who I really was.
Right.
And it's not for it. Like I said, it's not for everyone. But it also let me let go of judgments on myself of who I thought I was supposed to be. So in letting go of those judgments, then now I can more fully embrace who I really am. So I spend a lot of time working on being intentional, making intentional decisions, thinking through, does this work for me? Is this where I want to put my energy? And it helps me discern what matters. And when I do that, I feel, cancer for me was the ultimate burnout. And so that was a message to say, hey, you're burnout. You cannot do it all, and you have to be more intentional with where you're putting your time and your energy. And so I think I always want to kind of keep those habits and practices in place to avoid that burnout and to really manage my energy levels. And another practice I really enjoy is I started reading on a regular basis. So,
Yes. Yeah.
we in our office, we do some ninja selling practices. And one of those practices is reading. I think they say 10 minutes a day. I like 30 minutes a day, but 10 minutes is great, of positive reading, something that's going to positively push you forward, make you think, use that growth mindset more. And I added to that a podcast. So 30 minutes of either a business or a personal growth podcast per weekday. So at least 5 days a week. And so that means my brain is really always trying to stay in a mindset of opportunity, growth. Well, there's a problem, and here's an opportunity in that. So between being intentional and reading and filling my mind with positive things, that's probably the practices that I use to kind of manage the demands of this industry.
Yeah. This episode is all about authenticity. And I think you just shared probably the best nugget of this whole episode, which didn't really necessarily have to do with authenticity when you mentioned this whole personal growth thing to keep your mind good, right? I mean, we have done so many episodes on mindset because, as you can imagine, as things have gone south, whether they're exterior factors or the interest rates are creeping up high or whatever the case might be, agents' mindset goes to negative places. And I love that you shared some easy to implement for anybody listening practices that you can instill in your daily life that can help keep your mind sharp and keep you focused on positive things and keep you focused moving forward. Right.
And what's easy,
right. And if I was in my, do what?
You're fine. I said, what's easy to do is also easy not
if I was
to
in
do.
my home office today.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's the key right there. So and I, even on my habit tracker, I have check boxes to remind myself, have you done that today? For those things that I have decided or what I have to do every day. And I'm not going to say I don't have some negative mindset sometimes, but even in my home office, if you were there on my whiteboard right beside me, I have a growth mindset graphic and fixed mindset, so that when I do think certain things, I can look at that and go, oh, wait a minute. What's the growth mindset way to look at this?
Sure. Trying to always keep your brain exercised in that positive manner.
It's a lot of work.
By the way, we did an episode with Brooke Scott about 3 years ago on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So if you want to understand what that means, what Lori's talking about, go back and check out that episode. I don't know what episode it is, so I apologize, but you'll find it.
Well,
yes.
And anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about being authentic in their business?
I'm lucky in that growth mindset way that I have always been a future focused glass half full person. So I do think some of that comes naturally a little easier for me. I do believe that all people can work towards it. So even if it's less natural to you, if you have a more anxiety ridden personality, that is more nervous about things. So that's where that positive reading and podcasts and things like that can really shift your brain thinking. But I always have to remember that I cannot provide an exceptional client experience if I'm dumping my own mental health, my own personal struggles, my own unprocessed issues on my clients, or if I'm letting their issues trigger me. And so my goal is exceptional client experience. And I have to really temper myself to be able to provide that. And so leaning into my own, like you said, being someone who you're not is a lot of work. And so being authentic and accepting that I'm not for everyone, I get more clients actually, because the ones who are attracted to me find me now because I am being more authentic.
Yeah. I love what you just said there, though, on the, you can't be dumping your own mental health issues or being triggered by theirs. And I think about one of my early on jobs, I had to be customer service and returns and retail around Christmas time, right? And people are just mean, and it's like teenagers, right, that are working behind the counter. People are just mean and dirty and nasty sometimes, because they're taking out their stress, their holiday stress. They are dealing with extra things. And that was one of the best things I ever had a supervisor tell me at that point is when you do have someone who maybe starts making a business issue personal, it goes into a name calling or something where, they're taking their own frustrations out on you and as an individual. It's just picture a pole right in front of you and they're talking to that pole. They're not talking to you. And was really
Mm,
refreshing, right? Just
good.
to even have that image and to
Right.
say, like, I can understand. I've been in spots where I've been frustrated. Man, I couldn't imagine if you have all of your family in your house right now and this pan didn't work.
Yeah.
That's, whatever, right?
Makes sense.
None of it was
Yeah.
life or death, but it is that. It's
Right.
deflecting and also being aware of your own issues so you're not dumping on someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Very true.
we have
Very true.
really appreciated the authenticity that you've shared here today. And we do have a few wrap-up questions that we like to ask all of our
Okay.
guests. So we'll get into these real quick. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Gosh, I feel like I have so many, and then I struggled to narrow some of them down. I believe something, and I think I probably learned this from a podcast. That's what's so great about our business. We're in the car all the time, so I can listen to so many wonderful voices in the car, and I really try to fill that space with good voices and not waste that time. And so somewhere along the way, someone said, decide who gets to be on your personal board of directors. Not everyone gets to weigh in, gets a seat on your personal board of directors. Be clear with yourself, me, who gets to advise you, how much weight their advice carries, and whose thoughts and opinions don't. Maybe they get to share the thought or opinion, but it doesn't carry weight in your decision. So that's been huge for me to really realize, oh, well, that person gave me that advice, but they're not, their advice doesn't carry a lot of weight for me. So I'll take it under advisement and I'm not going to fret over it. But that person really has my best interest at heart. And they have just given me sound advice in the past. And maybe I should really think deeper about what they said. So decide who gets to be on your personal board of directors.
Love
Oh,
it.
I love that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you've read the book Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill.
No.
But that book
Oh,
is,
add it.
it is a very interesting book. I'll just say that. But in it, he
Okay.
talks about how one of the ways that he made himself successful was creating a virtual board of directors of people that are lacking a skill that he wants, that he desires. But yours is more like let's say a top 5 or a top 10 people in your life that can really influence you, right? I love it. Love it.
Right, right. I like his though too. I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yeah, it's funny about that. I started to write down some of mine, and like it's pretty cool how creative you can get with some of these. Like for example, an author. Brian Tracy is like I'm an author, and I want to be a better author. So Brian Tracy sits on my board of directors. I don't know him personally,
Right.
but I talk to him virtually. I know it sounds crazy. That's why I said the
That's
book
awesome.
is really interesting. It's really interesting. It's different.
I love it. I
On
love
another,
it. Can't wait. Can't wait.
speaking of books, what book have you read that has shaped who you are today?
Ooh. So I mentioned Atomic Habits earlier, and I love that one. But really, if I think deeply about what shaped me, what brought me to this path to realize that like I have to be me. I can't be anyone else. And then when you see the results of that in your business, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not crazy. It works to be yourself. And so I read about 6 years ago a book called The Road Back to You, and it's about the Enneagram, which is a personality system of 9 numbers. It's written by Suzanne Stabile and Ian Morgan Cron. And I'm actually in a Zoom group. That's my 12 o'clock meeting, is with a group that Suzanne Stabile puts together. And so it put me on a path of discovering essentially what number I am on the Enneagram, and then also understanding all 9 numbers, so that I'm not always expecting other people to be who I am, because that's a tricky piece. Like if you see the world a certain way, you think everybody sees that, and they don't. And
Right.
and so the Enneagram goes deeper than DISC or Myers-Briggs. Those are strength finders. Those are all great analysis systems, but it really helped me understand why I did things, what the maybe message I received in my past that made me see the world that way, those things. But it also helped me understand other people. And that has been hugely beneficial with clients because I can go, oh, wait a minute, they see it this way.
Yeah.
And I see it this way. I've got to meet them where they are and explain this in a way they can hear it. My way of hearing it is not their way. So yeah, I'm super into the Enneagram now. If anybody ever wants to talk about it, I would love to see it used in real estate more. You know, it's that book was the beginning of that.
Nice. Very cool. I have not read that one, so I'll have to check that out. And then what's the best way if somebody has maybe they have a referral for you in Raleigh,
Or they want to talk about the Enneagram.
or they want to talk about, yeah. What's
That's
the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I am on Instagram at Lori, Lori is how you spell that, Edwards, Lori Edwards Real Estate. And my Instagram bio has my contact information right in the bio on my page. And then I'm on TikTok, as you mentioned earlier, where I am Lori Edwards Realtor. On TikTok, I should be the same things, but once you start tagging things, it messes everything up and then you can't change your name. So I do have a Facebook page, Lori Edwards Remax United, but it's that's pretty static. I spend more time on Instagram and TikTok. So that's how you can find me.
Very cool. Very cool. Love it.
Okay. Well, hopefully everyone listening, you got something out of this about being authentic. And it's okay to be authentic, right? It's great to be intentional, to know what matters to you, develop your own habits and practices around having a strong mindset. And being real and being genuine ultimately is going to help you in your business. Sometimes we get worried it's going to hurt us. We have to put on some pretty face and we have to keep up with the Joneses and everything else. But if you are you, you find your tribe, you find your connections, and you thrive.
Yes. Thanks for being on the show so much, Lori. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Turn the Dial Podcast. Please check us out on Facebook or TikTok at Turn the Dial Coaching. We would also love for you to subscribe to our show and rate us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more information on our coaching programs, please go to turnthedialcoaching.com. Thanks for listening.